The expensive restaurant glowed under crystal chandeliers as Jack Cole, a single father in worn work clothes, nervously led his 8-year-old daughter Ella toward an empty corner table. A group of wealthy diners sneered at them. "This isn't a place for people like you," one of them muttered, loud enough for Jack to hear. His hand trembled as he gripped Ella's fingers tighter, ready to turn and leave. But then she whispered softly, "It's okay, Daddy, we can leave." The room erupted in mocking laughter. Even the waiter waved them away dismissively. But at the VIP table, a young billionaire CEO named Victor Lane set down his wine glass, eyes turning ice cold. That night, he would do something that would change everything forever. Jack was 37, but his hands looked 50. Years of construction, dishwashing, and late-night shifts had carved deep lines into his palms. Tonight was supposed to be special. It was Ella's 8th birthday, and for once he wanted to give her more than dollar store cake and second-hand toys. "Daddy, are you sure we can eat here?" Ella asked, her voice barely audible over the soft piano music floating through the elegant dining room. Jack looked down at his daughter. She wore her best dress, the pale blue one with tiny flowers his late wife had sewn 3 years ago, before cancer took her. Around Ella's neck hung a simple cord with a handmade pendant reading, "Brave" in crooked letters. "Of course, sweetheart," Jack said, forcing confidence into his voice. "You deserve this." He had saved $247 over 3 months, every extra dollar from overtime, every tip from bussing tables at the diner across town. Enough for one nice dinner, enough to see his daughter smile like she used to, before life got hard. The restaurant, Le Chateau, looked like something from a movie. White tablecloths, fresh flowers, waiters in black ties gliding between tables like dancers. Jack felt every eye turn toward them as they walked in. His boots squeaked on the marble floor. His shirt, though freshly washed, looked thin under the golden lights. At the VIP section behind a velvet rope, Victor Lane sat alone, 32 years old. Already worth billions, a tech entrepreneur and venture capitalist, he could turn startups into empires with a single phone call. Tonight he sipped wine worth more than Jack's monthly rent. Tabloids called him heartless. Business magazines called him brilliant. Nobody called him kind. Victor had not always been wealthy. Buried under years of success was a memory of himself at 7, holding his mother's hand, hearing whispers like these. He shook it away and returned to his phone. Jack approached the hostess. "Reservation for Cole, 7:30, he said quietly, Ella's hand sweaty in his. The hostess glanced at her screen, then at him. Her smile flickered. "I see. Unfortunately, Mr. Cole, your table has been given away. Perhaps you would be more comfortable at a more casual establishment?" Jack felt his face burn. Ella tugged his sleeve. "It's okay, Daddy. I'm not that hungry anyway." Nearby, a man in a designer suit laughed loud enough for Jack to hear. "This isn't a place for people like you." Jack's body went rigid. Jaw clenched, free hand curled into a fist. Ella squeezed his hand and he remembered why he was here. Not for pride, but for her. "We should go," he whispered. That's when everything changed. A chair scraped sharply against marble. Victor Lane had stood, 6 feet tall, dressed in a charcoal suit, face carved from stone, eyes burning. The restaurant fell silent. Victor walked past tables and the hostess stand, stopping in front of Jack and Ella. "What's happening here?" he asked Bernard, the manager. "Mr. Lane, we were just explaining our policies," Bernard said, sneer fading as Victor's glare cut through him. "What policies? Dress code? Reservation system?" "He's wearing clean clothes and brought his daughter for her birthday." "What's the difference?" "We maintain a certain atmosphere," Bernard stammered. Victor repeated the word like it tasted rotten. "Atmosphere? You mean you judge people by bank accounts instead of character?" The wealthy guests who had laughed earlier now sat frozen. Victor turned to the hostess. "Cancel my reservation. I'll sit where they sit. If they're not good enough for your best table, neither am I." Jack shook his head. "You don't have to do this." Victor looked down at Ella. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Ella," she whispered. "That's a beautiful name. Is today your birthday?" She nodded. "You deserve better than this." Bernard hurriedly set up a table in the center of the dining room. Victor's voice left no room for negotiation. "Bring us your finest dishes. Everything the chef is proudest of tonight. Jack leaned forward, voice low. That's too much. We can't. You're not paying, Victor said. I am. And I insist. Ella's eyes lit up for the first time. Daddy, what's a truffle? Jack smiled softly. A fancy mushroom. You'll love it, Victor said, smiling. The waiter scurried away, and the restaurant buzzed with whispered conversations. Phones appeared, not to mock Jack, but to capture the billionaire-defying convention. Victor didn't notice. He folded his hands on the table and looked at Jack. How long have you been raising Ella alone? Jack hesitated. 3 years. My wife, Sarah, passed when Ella was 5. Victor nodded, his gaze gentle. You do more than manage. You're raising a remarkable child. Ella blushed. I'm not remarkable. I'm just Ella. Sometimes, Victor said softly, the most remarkable people don't realize how special they are. The food arrived. Lobster thermidor, Wagyu beef truffle risotto, chocolate soufflé, plates that looked like art. Ella's eyes widened in wonder. Jack felt overwhelmed, almost guilty, but her smile made it worth it. As they ate, Ella's questions drew out Victor's story. He had a mother who died when he was 7. He had lived through the same humiliation Jack and Ella faced tonight. She said to me, "It's okay, son. We can leave," Victor said quietly, staring at Ella. And it broke my heart. Now, sitting here with them, he promised he would never let it happen again. He stood, voice raised. Everyone, my name is Victor Lane. 25 years ago, I was that child. Tonight, no one will be humiliated here because of wealth or appearance. Character matters more than credit cards. Bernard's face turned pale. You're fired, Victor said coldly. Clean out your desk tonight. Victor turned to the wealthy guests who had mocked Jack. You can leave, or you can learn what human decency looks like. Then he sat, calm as ever. Slowly, people began to applaud, not for Victor, but for what he had done. For speaking the truth. Ella hid her face as they sang happy birthday to her. Tears filled Jack's eyes. The world for a moment felt right again. 3 days later, Victor visited Jack at the construction site. I've set up a fund for single parents struggling to make ends meet, he said. The Sarah Cole Foundation. If that's okay with you. Jack's eyes filled with tears. Yes, he whispered. Victor extended his hand. I'd like to be friends. Not because of charity or pity, but because we understand each other. Jack shook it tightly. I'd like that. A week later, the 3 of them met at a park, sitting on a blanket, eating sandwiches, not at a fancy restaurant, but where they belonged. And for the first time in a long while, Jack felt hope. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the park. Jack, Ella, and Victor sat on a soft blanket spread over the grass. Sandwiches and juice boxes were laid out, but for once, Jack didn't care about fancy food. He watched Ella laugh as she tried to feed a curious squirrel, her small hand extended with a crumb. Victor smiled at the sight. She's brave, he said softly, almost to himself. And kind, Jack nodded. She's my whole world. Ella looked up, crumbs on her cheeks. Mr. Victor, will you play tag with me? Victor hesitated, then laughed. A full, genuine laugh that made Jack realize he hadn't heard it before. Tag? I haven't played that since I was about your age, Ella. Then it's perfect, she said, jumping up and running a few steps before looking back over her shoulder. Come on. Victor got to his feet carefully, and soon the 3 of them were running across the park, Jack keeping pace with Victor, trying not to trip over his boots. Laughter echoed through the open space, blending with the wind and the distant sounds of children playing. After a while, they collapsed on the blanket, breathless and smiling. Jack looked at Victor. I never thought someone like you would care about someone like us. Victor shook his head. No one should have to feel invisible because of where they come from, or how much they have. That night at Le Chateau, it reminded me why I started working so hard, why I never wanted to forget the little things. Ella snuggled against her father. I like you, Mr. Victor. You make everything fun. Victor's eyes softened. I like you too, Ella, and you, Jack. You remind me that the most important things in life aren't on balance sheets or in boardrooms. Jack felt a lump in his throat. Thank you for everything. For standing up for us, for believing in people like us. Victor shrugged, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because it needed to be done. And because you reminded me a shared understanding.